What if I told you that God's domain is shrinking? And it's because most people believe in the God of the gaps. But what does that even mean, the God of the gaps? I'll walk you through it, and by the end of this show, you'll be able to spot the God of the gaps for yourself. I'm the Kinky Polyatheist. Stick around. A long time ago, humans didn't know how things worked, so we had a lot of questions. Questions like, why does the sun rise and set every day? Where does it go when it's gone? What are the stars? Why does the moon have cycles? Now, odds are you know the answers to these questions because you're a modern human. But for thousands and thousands of years, people didn't know. And that was exactly where God stepped in. Why does the sun rise? I don't know. God? Why does the sun set? I don't know. God must have a plan. Where does the sun go at night? I don't know. God only knows. So what it boils down to, I don't know how this works. Let's just say it's God. And the result is, God and God's domain is born out of ignorance. And honestly, that wouldn't be a problem if humans didn't have this thing called science, where over time we're discovering more and more about how reality actually works. Now we know that the sun is the center of the solar system, and it rises and sets because the Earth itself is spinning. When the sun is gone at night, it's simply lighting the other side of the Earth, and our idea of night is basically just our side of the planet is in shadow. The moon also orbits the Earth. As it does so, the sun's light hits it, and depending where that moon is in its revolution around Earth, it's going to show us a different reflection of that light, which gives us the phases of the moon. We also know that our solar system is held together by gravity, the sun's gravity mostly, and our sun is a lot like every other star in our sky, or our galaxy, or our universe. Now we know all these things. Me saying those things is probably annoying to you because they're boring, but thousands of years ago people didn't know these things, and so they attributed them all to God. Science has shown us all these things based on observation, evidence, experimentation, and ultimately launching things into orbit so we could see it for ourselves. When we don't know how something works, it's God. But as science eventually starts uncovering all these answers, God's domain kind of gets a little bit smaller and a little bit smaller with each answer. So that gap that's right on the edge of human knowledge comes all the way up to here, and then we start reaching questions we don't have answers to. That gap is where God gets inserted. That is the God of the gaps. And as our answers continue to get bigger and that gap gets smaller, the gap still exists. But also, we discover new questions, so the gap kind of moves out. But God stays in there, regardless of how much science pushes forward, because the God of the gaps is literally just, I don't know yet, so we'll just say God. It's a tricky thing, because the whole idea that God is the answer to the questions we don't have answers for yet means that every time science does discover an answer, God's realm gets a little bit smaller. At the same time, every time science answers a question, they're bound to find a couple more. And that's kind of convenient for religion, because that means no matter what, there's always going to be that edge of our understanding where we have questions we don't have answers for yet, where they will continue to insert their God of the gaps. God will always have a place, because there's always a spot that humans haven't figured out yet. God being the answer to questions we haven't discovered the answers to yet, it's a pretty sneaky way to keep your God and your religion around for thousands of years. For example, we know that the sun and gravity hold together our solar system, but that just leads to new questions. What set the solar system in motion? And where did it all come from? And the response that we get from religion is, clearly something set it all into motion. It must be God. And boom, we just did it again. We just fell into the God of the gaps domain. And now religion can say, ha! See, I told you, science doesn't have all the answers. We have all the answers. God is the answer. No, that's just the God of the gaps. As George Carlin once said, the God excuse. The last refuge for a man with no answers and no argument. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Our solar system is evidence of our solar system. Gravity is evidence of gravity. The universe is evidence of the universe. The Bible is evidence of a book that was written and rewritten by men for thousands of years. God would be evidence of God. The God of the gaps is evidence of the God of the gaps. Like and subscribe this video, and if you have questions, you can send them to ask@kinkypolyatheist.com. Don't forget to share with your friends. So do you have any examples of where the God of the gaps is applying? Where people are just dropping God in because they don't really have an answer? So go ahead and drop some examples of God of the gaps into the comments below, so we can educate people and make sure they can all see the God of the gaps before religion tries to use it against them. I'm the Kinky Polyatheist. I'll catch you guys next time. But clearly we have a universe, right? Like, that implies intelligent design. If I was walking down the beach and I found a watch, that would imply that there's a watchmaker, right? So clearly the universe says there must be a universe maker. Nope, that's a fallacy. I'll talk about that next time. See you then.